On August 5, 1945, the crew of USS Helm pulled Body 19 from the Philippine Sea. He had no dog tags. His face could no longer identify him. But one word was still visible on his arm: Vera. This story does not begin with sharks. It begins with a body, and with the question of why the Navy had not found these men sooner. The most familiar version of the USS Indianapolis disaster is the story of the worst shark attack in naval history. Anyone who has seen Jaws has heard it. 4 days in open water, hundreds of men, sharks feeding on survivors. That version is not a fabrication, but it explains the deaths of a fraction of the men aboard as though it explains them all. The body recovery report compiled aboard USS Helm, written after the living had already been pulled from the water, does not begin with sharks. It begins with bodies, and it complicates the popular version in ways the popular version has never had to answer for. This documentary follows the record, not the legend. Before Indianapolis became a fixture in American popular memory, she was a heavy cruiser with orders and a route. Late July 1945. Indianapolis had just completed a classified mission, delivering components for the first atomic bomb to the island of Tinian. The secret part of the voyage was over. What followed looked from the outside like routine transit. Guam, then Leyte in the Philippines. There were 1,195 men aboard. They did not know what they had carried, and they did not know what was coming. They knew a heading and a speed. On July 28th, Indianapolis left Guam without a destroyer escort. The later congressional record would establish that Captain Charles McVay had not been given critical intelligence about Japanese submarine activity along his route. The escort that could have been assigned was not assigned. The information that might have changed his course or his speed never reached him. A captain can only make decisions within the information he has been given. Lewis Haynes was the ship's doctor aboard Indianapolis. On a ship, a doctor has instruments, medication, bunks, orderlies, light, water. There is a structure around him that makes medicine possible. After midnight on July 30th, 1945, none of that existed. Haynes would survive and become one of the most important witnesses to what the water did to 600 men over 4 days. He would speak about it for decades, and what he remembered was not sharks. It was thirst, salt water, diarrhea, and what he described as madness. Medical facts he could do almost nothing to treat. But first, the torpedoes. At approximately 00:15 on July 30th, 1945, the Japanese submarine I-58 fired on Indianapolis. The ship went down in roughly 12 minutes. Some of the crew never entered the survival story at all. They died in the explosions, below decks, in the minutes while the ship was still moving downward. They were gone before the water began. Around 900 men entered the Philippine Sea, in darkness. Without escort, without anyone knowing where they were. After the torpedoes, the ship's record stops behaving like a ship's record. It fractures into men in groups, men alone, men with life rafts, men with nothing. The record does not say which bodies were attacked before death, which after, or how many disappeared beneath the surface unseen. It does not say because there was no one positioned to watch and record. The men in the water were the record. The system that was supposed to notice Indianapolis's absence did not notice it in time. This is not a metaphor. Indianapolis was expected at Leyte on schedule. She did not arrive. Available records suggest the ship was not flagged as overdue in a way that triggered a search. Nearly 1,200 men disappeared from the operational picture, and the machinery of naval administration, which was large and had been running for years, did not respond. Not because anyone concealed the absence, because the procedure failed in the way procedures fail when the assumption underneath them turns out to be wrong. The assumption was that someone would notice. That assumption was wrong in the only way that mattered. In the water, Haynes could not treat dehydration. He could only watch it move through the group. Thirst came first. Then men began drinking the ocean because thirst had made rational decision unreachable. The salt worked through them. Diarrhea, then delirium. Men trying to swim toward things that were not there. Men around them turning dangerous and unreachable. Speaking decades later, Haynes did not describe the ordeal primarily in terms of shark attacks. He described physiological collapse under conditions that had no medical solution. The sea did not need to bite every man. It only needed time. Sharks were there. Men were bitten. Some were taken alive. The terror of their presence was real and constant, regardless of whether a particular man was ever directly attacked. But a cautious reading of the available sources points to this. Most of the men who died in the water between July 30th and August 2nd did not die from shark bites. They died of thirst, saltwater poisoning, wounds sustained in the sinking, sun exposure, exhaustion, drowning, and physiological collapse. The survivors were not found because the Navy had tracked the ship and closed a search perimeter around its last known position. On August 2nd, a patrol aircraft on a routine anti-submarine flight spotted an oil slick and then men in the water, by chance. Had it flown a slightly different course, the men in the water would have spent another day there. 316 survived. 879 did not. The arithmetic does not soften with repetition. After the living came aboard, the work changed. Ships that had been pulling men from the water became ships recovering bodies. That transition is recorded in the official documents with the same measured language that characterized naval paperwork of the period. The language does not dramatize, it accounts. The USS Helm Body Recovery Report is one of the primary documents for what came next. The access path through NARA has been confirmed separately. What the available portion of that report shows: 28 bodies examined by the medical officer. About half were shark-bitten. That line is worth holding. Not all, not most, about half. Of 28. This does not make the sharks incidental. It makes the popular version less precise than it sounds. The medical officer's work, as the open record allows us to see it, was identification work, not forensic investigation in any modern sense. Damaged hands, skin removed where the condition of the body permitted, that skin dehydrated in an attempt to recover fingerprints. August 1945 aboard a ship with bodies that had been in warm, tropical water for 4 days. The available record is not an autopsy ledger assigning exact causes of death. It is narrower than that, and that is precisely why it matters. When the body recovery report and the medical handling records complicate the shark legend, they do so not by replacing it with a clean alternative account, but by showing that a precise shark death count was never assembled in the way the popular version implies. My reading is that the shark legend persisted because it gives the disaster a shape. A shark attack has an enemy. It has a visible cause and a physical mechanism. Dehydration does not. Saltwater poisoning does not. Administrative failure, a system that did not notice a ship was missing for 4 days, certainly does not. That is why the less cinematic causes matter more. Without them, the majority of the deaths remain unexplained, and the system that extended the time those men spent in the water remains outside the frame. The 1975 film Jaws made the Indianapolis shark story famous. 30 years after the sinking, the scene is unforgettable. It is not the record. Jaws is an amplifier, not a source. What it amplified already existed in the popular telling. But after Jaws, the shark displaced thirst, sun, dehydration, and a rescue system that did not know what it had lost. Estimates of shark-related deaths range from a few dozen to more than 150. That range is not a failure of research. It reflects a genuine limit in the evidence. The exact number is not recoverable from the open record. The pattern is, most of the men who died in the water did not die from sharks. The Navy's later record was considerably cleaner than the water record. It had charges, a defendant, witnesses, a proceeding, and a verdict. It had the shape of institutional accountability. Captain Charles McVay was court-martialed for hazarding his vessel by failing to zigzag. A cautious reading is that the court-martial answered the question the institution could bear to ask, not the question the dead had left behind. The question the institution could ask: did the captain follow proper evasion procedure? The question the dead had left: why did the system not know they were missing for 4 days? The court largely avoided the second. The commander of I-58 testified at the court-martial that no amount of zigzagging would have prevented him from launching his attack. McVay was convicted regardless. Congress later found that McVay had not been given critical information about the submarine threat along his route, that he had been denied an escort, and that his record should reflect exoneration. Public Law 106-398 made that correction official. The correction came decades too late for McVay, who died in 1968, and far too late for the men who had waited in the water. When the wreck was located in 2017, it gave researchers something documents alone cannot provide: steel on the seafloor, physical evidence that could be set against the 1945 records. The torpedo damage was there. The data supported 2 hits. On the question of the chitin, a Japanese human-guided torpedo, Hashimoto stated he did not deploy them, and the wreck analysis neither confirms nor disproves that claim. The wreck can corroborate the sinking record. It cannot tell the water story person by person. A family account published by Travis Nichols in 2025 identifies Body 19 as Paul Virgil Nichols of Memphis, Tennessee, through family research, not through an opened Navy body file. It is family history, not official documentation. But what family history can sometimes preserve is exactly what official records cannot: the specific, the personal, the detail that sits outside the numbered column. Body 19 had no dog tags when Helm recovered him. His face gave nothing recognizable. The identification came through skin, through fingerprints recovered where the condition of the body permitted, and then through the marks still left on one arm after 4 days in the Philippine Sea. The record did not give Paul Virgil Nichols a shark story. It gave him one word on a ruined arm: Vera. Pre-delivery checks. Banned phrases scan, 0 hits. First person count, 1. My reading is that the shark legend persisted within the 1 to 2 range. Promise sentence in cold open. This story does not begin with sharks. It begins with a body, and with the question of why the Navy had not found these men sooner. Payoff at close. The record did not give Paul Virgil Nichols a shark story. It gave him one word on a ruined arm: Vera. Ending type: C.